hadith number 1523. 1523, and it says, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أتدرون ما الغيبة؟ قالوا الله ورسوله أعلم. قال ذكرك أخاك بما يكره. قيل أفرأيت إن كان في أخي ما أقول؟ قال إن كان فيه ما تقول فقد اغتبته وإن لم يكن فيه ما تقول فقد بهته. Which roughly means that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, do you know what is backbiting? The companions said, Allah and His Messenger know better. Thereupon he said, backbiting is talking about your Muslim brother in a manner which he dislikes. It was said to him, what if my Muslim brother is as I say? He said, if he is actually as you say, then that is backbiting. But if that is not in him, that is slandering. And the hadith is reported by Imam Muslim, rahimahullah. As you see here, the Prophet ﷺ, he asked a question. And this is one of the ways to learn and one of the ways to teach, is to teach with giving a question to the people, to the audience, to those who are present, to the students. And in the context of teaching, it's okay to ask a question knowing that the people do not know the answer to it. Why? Because that brings their attention and their focus. And it's also okay, as the people of knowledge, they say, that if the students, they would answer, even if they give a wrong answer, it's okay. Why? Because it's in the context of learning. It's not about asking a matter of the religion where we are forbidden to speak about religion without knowledge. You know, if someone, for example, in a classroom, in a session of knowledge, and the sheikh and the scholar or the teacher, he would ask the people something in matters of religion. For example, to say, what is the ruling with regards to wearing gold and gold for men, for example, right? And the people do not know yet. This is the subject of the class, you know, of that day. But he sets the lesson with a question. It's okay for them to give a wrong answer. They're not saying or talking about the religion without knowledge, because they're in the context of learning. So he's examining what would they think, not for them to be basically talking about the religion without knowledge. But when the Prophet ﷺ would ask the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they always would say, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam knows best. Even though they would literally understand or know the meaning of al-ghiba. Ghiba literally something that is not present, someone that is absent. Something about something absent, and that basically has its effect on the definition of al-ghiba. So they probably had an idea of what the Prophet ﷺ is saying, but the way that they had this adab and this manners with the Prophet ﷺ and with matters of the deen in general, they said, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. And that's something to teach us to always say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. That brings the question, can a person say Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam in anything that we are asked about? Can we say Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they know better? Not in everything. Why? Because after the Prophet alayhi wasallam, if someone asks us about matters of unseen, we say Allahu a'lam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. If someone asks us about matters of the deen, if we do not have the knowledge of it, we say Allahu a'lam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And this is one of the things that all of us who need to learn to frequently say Allahu a'lam, or even to say la a'lam. As simple as it is, I do not know. And this is half of the knowledge, as the people of the early generations of Islam, they used to agree upon this principle, that half of the knowledge is to say, I do not know. The more the person learns, the more that he would realize that he does not really know. And that's why the arrogant ones, those who have less knowledge, the ignorant ones, they would think that they have an answer to every question. And the people of knowledge, you would hear from them frequently that they would say, La adri, la a'lam, I do not know, ask someone else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Unless a person has the knowledge of a matter, of course he has to convey that. And this is also another subject of the etiquettes of giving a question or answering a question. But it's something that we frequently should say. We're living at times when everybody has a say about almost everything. Whether it's religion, politics, all kinds of things. And you would find people saying what they think, what they believe, what they like, what they desire. And we have to, fulfill this adab and this etiquettes and manners, especially with matters of the religion. To say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, I do not know. We need to learn to know. Knowledge comes with learning, does not come by default, does not come by feelings, by taste, or it sounds good, it looks good. These types of things has no consideration to it whatsoever. Ilm or knowledge is to be taught for the person to learn it, to be able to speak based on knowledge. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they said, Allah wa Rasuluhu a'lam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam knows best about what is the ghiba, what is the definition of al-ghiba. Then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam giving the definition of it. ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ. ذِكْرُك, when you would mention your brother, بِمَا يَكْرَهُ, with what he dislikes. So anything that your brother dislikes, if you say it, that's ghiba. If you say it about him, that's ghiba. If we put this definition with the linguistic meaning of al-ghiba, does it mean in his absence? This is what many of the people of knowledge, they defined al-ghiba, is that when you mention your brother in his absence with something that he dislikes. But the Prophet ﷺ, when he defined it, he said, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ. That's why some of the people of knowledge, they said ghiba is when you mention your brother with something that he dislikes, whether he is present or whether he's absent. Right? Unless it's between you and that brother and you're advising him, you're enjoining good, forbidding evil. But in general, in principle, it's when in the absence of that brother, you speak about him in a way that he dislikes. This can be in something religiously, can be in something in worldly matters, physical appearance, the way that he looks, the way that he speaks, something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him with, whether it's his actions, which is a bad action, or something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him with, being short, being tall, being black, being white, being whatever, right? Talking about a brother, a Muslim brother or a Muslim sister for the sisters, with something that they dislike. If they were present, they would not like it. And we have to be also extremely careful with this. Why? Because we might think that, some things he might not dislike it, for example. But you never know. And when people are being nice to one another, sometimes someone would say something about them or ridicule them in a gathering, especially with friends, and people seem to be okay with it, but in reality they are not. And that's why we have to avoid this, whether it's someone that is close to us, someone that is a close friend or so. Do not ridicule, do not say anything that the shaitan works on the people and in their hearts, and they might not feel that they dislike it at that moment, but later on with other things that may lead them to thinking bad about one another and so on. So the Prophet ﷺ, again, he said, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ. Anything that your brother dislikes, then this is considered to be ghiba. Then the people said something that almost anybody that you would forbid them from ghiba, if someone backbited someone in your presence, and you tell him, brother, you had backbited this brother, or this is not permissible, we should not talk about someone in their absence. Right away, people usually, they would mention this statement, which is what they asked the Prophet ﷺ. They said, أَفَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ فِي أَخِي مَا أَقُولُ. They said to the Prophet ﷺ, what if the Muslim brother or this brother, he has what I said? I'm not lying about him. If he actually has what I say, what if that Muslim brother is as I say? Because people might think ghiba is when you say something about a brother in his absence, you exaggerated or you lied about him, said something that is not even in him. This is, of course, is even worse of a sin, as the Prophet ﷺ said. But ghiba, which is a major sin, is just by mentioning him or her in a way that he dislikes, even if you are 100% truthful about him. You said that he's short and he is short, or he's tall and he's tall, in a way that he doesn't like it, in a way to ridicule him, or matters of his religion. And as we said, ghiba is in speech and in a movement of a hand and a gesture, in a way that you look, in a blink of an eye, something that would imply, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's implicit or explicit, to the listener of what you're saying, that you are basically saying something that that brother would dislike for you to say. So as mentioned before, someone would say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide him, right? Or may Allah guide us all. In a context that a person would understand from it, that he's away from guidance. He needs guidance. That means he did something bad. he did something evil. Or someone would roll his eyes when a name of a brother is mentioned, or doing something like, with hand gesture, and it's different from one culture to the other, that makes a person, the listener or the one that is sitting, feels that something wrong with him. So we have to be extremely careful with this. So ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ, to mention your brother in something that he dislikes. So when they said, what if he has what I'm saying is present in him, I'm truthful, I'm not lying, I'm not exaggerating, then the Prophet ﷺ, saying it in a statement to make it clear, that clarifies all the doubts about what ghiba means. He said, إِن كَانَ فِيهِ مَا تَقُولُ فَقَدْ اغْتَبْتَ. He said, if your brother has, if he actually is as you say, then that is backbiting. You have committed that major sin. You already backbited him. But if that is not in him, that is slandering. وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ فِيهِ مَا تَقُولُ فَقَدْ بَهَتَّ. You did buhtan. Al-buhtan is slandering. It's talking about someone, lying about someone, accusing someone about something that would attack his honor and dignity, and you're lying about it, which is far worse than the ghiba. And they're both major sins, but one is worse than the other. So once a person talks about someone in a matter that he dislikes, he's either committing ghiba, which is a major sin, or committing buhtan, which is worse of a major sin. And that's why a person should control his tongue, as the previous hadith, and that shows the fiqh and the knowledge of Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. He took us from one hadith to the other, leading us, when we are under the chapter of backbiting, leading us before the definition of al-ghiba, with the hadith that talks about controlling one's tongue, the importance of the tongue, making sure that we are watchful of what we say, so that once this hadith about backbiting is there, it makes it easy for us then to control ourselves. So this is how the Prophet ﷺ defined ghiba. So as one of the great benefits from this hadith, we would never say, if a person by mistake fall into ghiba, we would never say, well, it's true, I did not lie about him, this is exactly what he has. Right? The Prophet ﷺ made it very clear, if you do that, you still backbited him. Exceptions, we'll talk about the exceptions inshallah ta'ala later. There are some exceptions to this in some situations. And that in these situations is to bring benefit and to push away harm, as Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah will talk about that. But we need to focus more on showing the honor and the dignity of the Muslim. The Muslim is so honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the Day of Judgment, people will basically retaliate against one another. They would be even with one another because of the honor and dignity of a Muslim in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet ﷺ, which is the next hadith, shows that great honor of the Muslim, the human being that believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says the shahadatain, and he's someone that he prays, he is honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever attack that Muslim with his honor and dignity, he had committed something so evil. And there are hadiths that talks about this, man adali waliyan faqad adhantu bil harb. Whoever shows enmity to one of my awliya, those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we really don't know to a great extent who is wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if they're living among us. We only see their outside appearance. So if he's a Muslim and you're attacking his honor and dignity, maybe that Muslim is in a very high status to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, someone that is so righteous, and you backbited him, and that's why the backbiting to the people of knowledge, to the ulama, to those who are righteous and so on, this is even far more dangerous than anything else. So therefore a person has to be careful, because the honor and the dignity of a Muslim to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something very high.